just ask for what you want from a venue. Why can't it be hot chips and pieces of bread with butter? Why can't it be an all gluten-free menu?
Welcome to the Differently Aligned podcast for neurodivergent business owners. I'm Adina Levy. I'm an autistic ADHDer, business coach, speech therapist, professional educator, and multiple business owner. I support neurodivergent business owners to create businesses that are sustainable, enjoyable, impactful, profitable, and burnout free. I provide safe spaces for you to share with like-minded community who get it, me included. Everyone is welcome here, whatever your neurotype, gender, race, any other intersections and special, fantastic, unique things that make you, you are welcome here. This podcast is recorded on the Aboriginal lands of the Gadigal and Bidjigal people. I acknowledge the traditional owners, elders past and present, and I extend my respect to any First Nations people who are listening in. In this episode, you're going to hear parts of one of my guest speaker chats from the Neurodivergent Business Collective. That's my membership for neurodivergent business owners. And each month I bring a guest speaker who's an expert on a particular topic related to business and or somebody with lived experience of being a neurodivergent business owner. My members get full access to the whole chat and all the insights, all the best nuggets of ideas, suggestions, resources, etc. But there is so much gold that I want to share with you. So I am bringing parts of these conversations to the Differently Aligned podcast, where you're going to get a real taste of the guest speakers' experience, perspectives, skills, and some of their top tips right here on the podcast. If you want to get the full conversation, head over to the link in the show notes to check out the Neurodivergent Business Collective. Katie Koullas is a late identified ADHD snap. High five. And the founder and visionary leader of Yellow Ladybugs, which is a absolutely groundbreaking, fabulous national charity empowering autistic girls, women, and gender diverse people based in Australia, in Melbourne. Some of those adjectives were my own. I'm just going to gush. You've been life-changing for many, including me, and that's why I am so stoked to have you on and to chat with you about accessible events. Because everything I've been involved in and heard about that Yellow Ladybugs has done has been just so affirming and accessible at all levels in as much as is humanly possible, which is never a perfect beast.
So true, thank you.
Also, what I didn't know, and it makes sense now I see it, is that Katie's also been an accountant, corporate event and marketing manager, and a lecturer in event management. So not only are you very good at this stuff, you literally know it from all angles. So it makes sense.
I've had a very ADHD career path.
Me and my two businesses and my two podcasts here.
Yeah.
So we decided to do this across all the things. So we're sharing it on my podcast for neurodivergent business owners, differently aligned, and for my podcast for grown-ups who support neurodivergent kids, which is exploring neurodiversity. And we're going to have a few like extra juicy bits. Like the full chat is in my membership, the Neurodivergent Business Collective for business owners. So
it's amazing, Adina. Well done on all those incredible spaces that you've created.
Thank you.
It's really cool.
Me and my computer, and then a bunch of chats with amazing people.
Ditto. That's Yellow Ladybugs pretty much.
That's all we're doing. We're just chatting about our spins. How are you? And I love to just say answer however you want.
I really love that. I am okay. This time of year gets like I'm on the wind down. So we're nearing the end of the year and I'm looking forward to that break. So I'm really good and
feel it inside.
Looking forward to the end of the year.
I love that. I don't know the exact number, but I heard there's something like around 100 days left of the year, which I kind of like that vibe.
I counted in weeks to Christmas. I think there's like 12 weeks to Christmas.
Let's dive in because there's so many places I want to go about all kinds of events, big and small, IRL in real life, acronym wise, online, everything and aspects of planning, coordinating, running events. For all of that, I want to know like a corner of you I don't know maybe is what are your lifelong glimmers or any current glimmers or things that just delight you?
Ooh, so I'm obsessed with anything glitter and bling, and I never understood why. I always used to call myself like a magpie that used to just be distracted by it. But now I realize it's definitely a sensory thing. Like I'm a sensory seeker. So seeing that. And it also is a bit stimmy. Like I can get lost at just looking at Christmas lights, or like my whole house is just different lighting. I don't have any overhead lights. I've got pink lights, purple lights in the bathroom. I have showers with fairy lights, and definitely like part of my DNA is
Yeah.
bling and glitter. Um, and like most neurodivergent folk, I love animals. And so I've got 4 cats and a dog. So that has been really joyful and a common thread for our family. Like it's been one of the best things to connect us all. And I've seen the difference with animals in the house in terms of helping us regulate and stay in our like windows of tolerance. Like it
Amazing.
really does connect us. And so sending pictures to each other. And I've got teens now. So when I first started Yellow Ladybugs, the kids were like 5, but now I've got one turning 18 in a few weeks and one 16. So sharing pics of the animals is just gives me so much joy. So yeah, those
That's so
would be
lovely.
my 2 core things.
I'm sitting here with my brightly coloured multicolour
I
nails that
was
have glitter. There's
looking.
always glitter.
Absolutely love,
I
love, love,
definitely get
love.
you on the visual stim thing
Yeah,
for sure. You mentioned your ADHD style career. Go wherever you want here, but like, how did
yeah.
you get to where you are at this point?
Oh, yes. Well, so you're right, ADHD again. I don't know how far to go back, but stop me. But in high school, I never really fitted in. So I think I did a post on this the other day around I turned to books instead of friends because, I was just the lone wolf at school and I connected with the teachers more. So I studied, and I knew it was also a way for me to have freedom in a household that didn't always feel stable or safe. So I just was good at accounting. And because the teacher said to me, you should do accounting, I took it so literally. I didn't even think like what gives me joy. I just was such a literal interpretation of someone saying, you should do this. And so, like back in the day, I applied for a cadetship and I was really lucky to get it. So I started my work straight out of high school full time, and I did my degree at nights. And I just worked. Like I was just I didn't realize how much I was missing on that sort of rest part. And I now see that as part of my own avoidant coping scheme. But that gave me a good base of like working out that I really love to be analytical. And maybe that's the autistic part of my brain. And it really fed that part of me. And I was a tax agent, an accountant for the big four, like back in the day, Anderson and EY. And then just as I started unmasking and as I got older, maybe in my early 20s, I started saying, well, what do you actually like doing? And I realized marketing and events was, I think I organized my wedding actually. That's probably where it started from. And I really loved that creative part. And I never allowed myself to lean into that because I was always doing what I thought I should be doing. Luckily, got a transfer at Ernst& Young and I became their marketing and events sponsorship manager. ADHD lets us sort of deep dive and learn on the ground. And so I just, even though I hadn't had a background in it, I just learnt on the job. And I see really common thread for ADHD people is that you have both the analytical sort of and that creative side, but allowing the ADHD to come through was great for that. And I'll talk a bit more about it when we get into inclusive and accessible events, but learning about events and in the corporate world was great and marketing. And then I had kids, and like a lot of mothers or fathers, I guess, whoever's still staying home, I had to find a career that would work around that. And that was the first time I started working for myself, and I became a business consultant and marketing consultant. And oh my God, it was so good being my own boss. Like I used to burn so many bridges, like stories I can share about burning bridges in my corporate world, not being appropriate, saying the wrong thing, so many. But being able to just not needing to report to anyone was just amazing. Obviously, there's challenges, like I'm sure you know, Adina, but that
Was
that
I
was
up at
really
1 a.m. Doing
yeah.
something that really excited me and I couldn't turn my brain off? Yes. But did
Oh
I
yeah,
also
we're
not
in a
work till
monotone.
11 a.m.? Also, yes.
100% monotropic flow there. You were in the flow,
Totally
exactly. And
get.
then I just thought, you know what, I love events. I want to give teaching a go. Again, I didn't have a master's in teaching, but I talked my way into teaching a Bachelor of Event Management at TAFE. And so I did that. And it was so much fun. I taught entrepreneurship, I taught event management. and working with students was amazing. And that's where I started Yellow Ladybugs, and I got some of my students to help me with our first ever event. And so it was sort of like a side quest project for the class, which
Awesome.
then just snowballed. And now I'm full time at Yellow Ladybugs and the CEO and managing a team.
I love that. And there's
Bit of
so
a
much
journey.
context that I never knew. And it just makes sense. Not to say that, if you get your CV out, it's not to say that just anyone's going to also have that same CV and do an amazing, inclusive job, which is
Yeah.
why I'm glad we are having this chat. And I'll
Yeah.
just say my own involvement with Yellow Ladybugs has been that you have delighted me and invited me to be a speaker for 3 years.
I'm
And
really
the
so grateful
the
too.
year before that, I attended online the 3-day conference, and that was my origin story, as in that was my turning point to recognize I really do think I'm not just making it up. I really do
Mm.
think I'm neurodivergent. Am now going to go seek that external validation of a
Oh my
psychologist to
gosh.
do that. And I know I'm not the only one who's had that experience where I
Oh, I got
just,
goosebumps. I often don't
yeah,
hear the stories though, because I'm so task focused. So taking a moment to hear your story, Adina, just gives me so much like joy to know that you and I, because I didn't know I was autistic either when I started Yellow Ladybugs,
yeah.
going through that as well by hearing stories like from people like you too.
It's so interesting how close we can be to it for so many years and
I
maybe
know.
gaslight ourselves and,
Absolutely.
all those stories.
100%. It all
But
makes
even
sense in hindsight.
even as soon as 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine let me know that she's just got her ADHD
Mm.
diagnosis, and what prompted her was watching Yellow Ladybugs, I think, this year to go and seek that. I'm like, "It's still happening."
It's so cool because I think the
Confirming
more
and
we can
affirming.
understand ourselves, there's so many ways that will flow through our lives,
It's
relationships,
amazing.
work,
Community.
everything, all of it. Yeah.
And
So nice.
I know that a big part of Yellow Ladybugs that I haven't been involved with has over the years been running groups with and for
Yeah.
autistic and neurodivergent children and their
Yeah.
families and so on. Can you share a little bit about what's the range of events you've run?
Yeah, sure, sure. So, I mean, like the origin story of the event and where it was born, the idea was born from is my youngest daughter was in maybe grade one, I think, at the time. And I saw everyone getting an invite to a party in the queue outside the classroom, and they sidestepped my daughter, and the child gave everyone but my daughter. And I just was just it was when we were exploring, and I think she had just been identified as autistic, and I just was like, "This is just so unfair." And I didn't know the word neurokin back then. I didn't even understand community. I didn't, I was so not like new to it back then. Honestly, I don't even know if it was a thing. Yellow Ladybug was her nickname because Yellow Ladybugs followed me when I was pregnant to her. So Yellow Ladybug was her nickname, and that was her hyper focus, and we threw Yellow Ladybug's birthday parties for her when she was 2, 3, 4. So everything was themed Yellow Ladybugs for her. So I said to myself, like, I wonder if there's any other Yellow Ladybugs out there. I just wanted her to have like a party that she could go to. And so with my background at Ernst& Young, I used to run private events at the NGV because we sponsored it. So I just was like, well, how can I give her this cool experience of meeting other kids in a space that's accessible for her? And I remember doing a shout out on social media saying, are there any other autistic girls that would like to meet up for a party? And that's how it sort of started. And I rang up my contact. Look, honestly, I'm the kind of person that just asks and pushes. Like, I know it's difficult for a lot of people to do that, and it might be a massive barrier. But for me, I know that is one of my strengths. So I lent into that. Logistics and all of that isn't my strengths, like executive functioning, but asking for what I need or want is luckily one of my strengths. And I said, is there any chance that you can close the gallery or let us access the gallery early for this group of kids? I've got this idea for an event. This is before the NGV even understood accessibility in terms of neurodivergence. They're all on it now, but 10 years ago, no one was even understanding this concept. So they said yes, like, and we were able to have 20 kids go to the National Gallery of Victoria before it opened, got access to the children's gallery. We had little Yellow Ladybug cupcakes. Each kid got a t-shirt, a Yellow Ladybugs t-shirt. And I just remember that day because I had never seen kids like me are, none with headphones, kids with messy hair, and parents were just crying. Like it seems so common now, but back then it was just so rare. And I just felt like the magic, it just like gave me this like a mission that I think I need to be on and try and bring more of this out into the community. So,
Amazing. So they,
yes.
most other families, I'm guessing, also had never experienced something
No, yeah,
so
no one else.
welcoming.
Everyone just were blown away by it, and that's where we had a really great group of volunteers come together after that, and had student volunteers that were helping. So it was really great to see where that was going to lead and evolve to. And
And it
I,
started with your
yeah,
ladybug's birthday.
it did. And look, honestly, she was still on the outer and she still didn't like, go up and she didn't make any besties or anything. But what it gave her, which again, I didn't have the words for, is that pride and like knowing that she's not alone. And even that, like wearing the Yellow Ladybugs t shirt as a symbol of unity and community. I didn't have the words for it then, but I just somehow, like maybe my experience with branding, I don't know, it just sort of came all together. It wasn't forced, it was organic, and it was really like altruistic in my like this needs to happen to for the world
And
mission in my brain.
it's making
So
me think, I'm thinking of like sliding doors moments in a way. It's like that was
yeah.
so pivotal. And probably there's a bunch of shots that you and I have taken over time and, tried things. I'm just saying you and I, because I'm sure you also
Yeah.
tried a bunch of things. And they don't always end up to be
No.
epic, amazing.
100%. 100%.
But that's okay too. It's like
Yep.
you just keep following the threads that feel important
Yeah.
and right. And
Yeah, and even though this
mm,
is not technically a business, I would say, like, as an entrepreneurial brain myself, I've had 500 billion different business ideas,
mhm,
even though to me this is sort of bigger than that. Even though I've used my business skills, I've honestly tried stuff before, and I've had but like you said, there's reasons why things might not work, and that's okay. But you might get this one idea that just all the things fall in place. It's the right timing. It's the
mhm,
right because if I had tried it 10 years earlier, I wouldn't have had that all my skills
mm,
come together like in my 40s, or maybe I think I started in my 30s. The background in accounting, the background in events, the background in
mhm.
marketing, the lived
All the pieces.
experience. It's all come,
Yeah.
it just all came together at the same
Yeah.
time, at the
It
right
makes
time.
like
Serendipitous, perhaps.
total sense. It's amazing. And I see why we are here and why you're here. In this moment and in this moment of impact. And I think apart from me having an amazing time in every aspect when I've been involved in Yellow Ladybugs, whether it's my experience being on panels, where the way that you've supported panel members to feel comfortable and prepared, for example, has been incredible. Not to mention the I think a lot of us call it autistic Christmas. Yellow Ladybugs, the in-person day of the conference in Melbourne, which I've been to twice now, has been just like, this is like, I hope we'll talk about it because a big group of people in a big space, many of whom we don't know, is almost the antithesis of what many autistics want
Oh,
and
no,
need. And so
totally.
that's almost like the furthest thing from what I do in my life, which is sit here in front of my
Same,
computer screen and,
same.
but yet with all that contrast, you make it so glorious. The
Uh-huh.
effort that we all put in to be there to create space and safety for each other and and for
Yeah,
ourselves is worth it. And there's more and more events popping up around. I'll just take Australia. I'm not as
yeah.
into the events in the rest of the world, but more and more events talking about neurodivergence, neurodiversity, trying to be spaces for community or for education.
Mm.
Some are conferences, some are less formal. There's all sorts.
Yeah.
But are you seeing it too?
I'm seeing a
In this,
lot more, which is great. Yeah, definitely a lot more. Like I said, like if you think back 10 years ago, even venue spaces weren't thinking about accessibility. But
yeah.
what we're seeing now in the growth of this sector is custom created, intended events
Mm.
that is using neuro accessible concepts as at the core. And that's
Yes.
great. I reckon even in the last 12 months, it's made a massive jump. So around
Mm.
COVID, events were sort of closing down, but I think it also gave us an opportunity to think about pivoting into like what is accessible. It was only when the majority goes, hang on, I can't access things, that
Mhm.
people started thinking, well, how can I make it more accessible? But we've been needing it all along.
It gave
But
it a
it's,
reshuffle. That's a
yeah,
good.
it gave it a reshuffle, but it's great to see now that there's more happening in that space. So definitely seeing and noticing that, and whether they're getting it right or they're evolving their
Mm.
work to get it right is going to be a journey, I think.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And you just got me thinking about I quite randomly signed myself up to attend South by Southwest Sydney in about 3 weeks' time. And I can't really define why I'm going there. And it's basically like tech and innovation and music and film. And none of it completely makes sense for me and my various hats, except it does, because I'm
Yeah.
getting very deep into like AI and coding. And that's what I was up to at 1 a.m. Don't even specifics because I can't even remember. But it's the innovation that got me about the conference. But it's,
Yeah.
there's nothing necessary about this very big event, huge event, that says I'm a safe space for neurodivergent people. So I've already spent quite a lot of effort thinking, how will I make it safe for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I did just think to open up their accessibility directory link. And it, of course, starts with the idea that accessibility is about wheelchair access.
Uh-huh.
And
100%.
let's just
Yeah.
get clear. I'm not saying that's all they do. They do actually have
Yeah.
sensory something in there, assistance animals, sensory spaces. I'll test them out. Accessible seating, live captioning, sunflower lanyards. I will be wearing mine. So assistive
Yeah.
hearing technology. Okay, so they've got a lot. They've got adult changing facility, how to avoid intense lighting. I'm fairly impressed now that I look at that. So they're not just sticking with accessibility means ramps.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, there's so many that are still thinking that accessibility is just about those obvious needs and not the invisible hidden needs.
Yeah. So for audience clarification, how do you think about access and inclusion and what that means?
So there's two different things I think we need to think about. Accessibility to me is about removing those barriers so that people can participate, or like you can go to that event. And obviously the wheelchair friendly entrances, you might do things like we always have gender neutral bathrooms, but we didn't always have that. We've learned from our community. So the first conference, that was the feedback. Why do you have gendered bathrooms? And we know in a community that's really important. We might have things like dietary requirements, sensory rooms, but I honestly, and we can talk a bit more around what we think we should include in accessibility, but inclusion is about adding that next layer of belonging and safety once you're there and once you're included. And so what we do obviously is think about what that means for that particular community that are attending your events. So it might be things like freedom to stim or move, or encouragement to do that. I know at the conference we have wristbands to signal social energy levels, so that you might be feeling depleted, so you can put the wristband on so that you don't need to explain, hey, don't talk to me. Um, we provide things like information on social hangovers, post-conference care, because to me, that's about inclusion, because you're thinking about not just making the barriers going away, but making the experience safer for that person, and also valued, making sure that people feel that they're not a burden for needing anything, and it's just naturally part of your event. And to me, that's like adding that next step of just accessibility.
So it's not just getting to, oh, okay, it's good enough. You're going
Yeah.
way further, a genuine, welcoming
Yeah, 100% of thinking. And
choice.
again, you're not going to get it right all the time like this. Every year we do our conference, we add another layer of learning
Mhm.
to make it more accessible, because as our community gets more in touch with their need and understanding what they need, it's going to become more nuanced, and there might be competing needs. And that's really an interesting layer that we're learning about now. There'll never be 100% accessible or inclusive for everyone. You can just commit to evolving that and trying to think about those layers and the competing areas of those needs. So, like yesterday, we talked about a book we created and we try to make it inclusive for as many people. We made the paper not rough, and we made the paper glossy. We made the font dyslexic friendly, and we made the font bigger, and we put chunks of information for ADHD people so that they don't have to read the whole chapter, they can get the whole bit. And then someone let us know that the paper was too heavy for them because they've got a co-occurring physical condition and they're used to lighter paper. And so this is where I guess it's like you're trying to do harm minimization, or like trying to reduce as many barriers as you can and try and be as inclusive as you can, and thinking about sometimes you're not going to always be able to do it for every competing need.
True.
But
And there's still something to be said very much about thinking about your own capacity, energetic, time, resources, financial, because there is a cost in many
big one.
ways to putting in these layers of access.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to use dialectics. Like, I'm going to try and be as accessible and inclusive as possible, and I need it to be sustainable for me as an organizer, because as a recovering perfectionist and fauna, and also a constant worrier and rejection sensitivity, I have stayed up so many nights worried that what I do is not good enough, and that I'm sure people would relate if you're in the space of any creative field, whether it's creating an event or any business, if you have that ADHD profile, because uh, you you want to do the right thing for your community, but you have to recognize your limitations and capacity, because it will burn you out. And we have been burnt out. There's been times that post conference I've thought, I don't think I can do this again because I've pushed myself so far.
Yeah.
And that then someone might give me a bit of feedback and I will just be like, oh my God, honestly, like it will hit me in the heart like a million
Yeah.
steak knives. But then once I get into my wise mind of not responding with too much emotion and not thinking of it too much analytics, and I can think in the middle road. I'm trying to train myself right now.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, I can keep going, but I'm going to have to put some boundaries on how much I do that. Yeah, keep it real with yourself.
This is so, so important. These are not even
Yeah.
points we had to chat about, but this is
No,
so
it's just
important.
naturally true, isn't it, Adina?
It
Like,
is. And the bigger your platform, the more you put yourself out to
yeah,
bigger and bigger things, you
yes,
will get pushback from the
yes,
noisy people.
yes,
Frontal. I'm just going to say it doesn't always work if they've paid for tickets and things like that, but
no.
you can block and ignore people. I just want people to remember that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You have to put safeguards in to protect your spoons, because, again, like I said, on the surface, people might assume things about you, like you're a big organization, like you've got all this money and you've got like all this time and you've got a massive team and you're just like you're on your computer trying to do the best you can. And having said that, like there's certain lines that like I do it too. I've been known to call out events that I don't think is doing the right thing. There's certain lines that I think you need to commit to. You have to know what your values are and your core must haves. So I'm talking like, for us at Yellow Ladybugs, once we weren't volunteer and we had funds coming in, we said the first thing we have to do is make sure we pay our contributors for their time. And so that's a non-negotiable. And there's other non-negotiables we have. And so otherwise we just won't do that. So we won't do the work. So yeah, I guess like know what your limits are, but also know what your non-negotiables are, to say, I'm not going to put this on unless I've got a sensory room available, or I'm not going to put this on unless I have closed captions or whatever it is.
It's such
Think
a great
about
way to handle that tension between I want to be accessible, but maybe I'm a brand new event organizer. I don't maybe have the resources or the expertise. I love that, starting with the core of your values and what your must-haves are, your non-negotiables, and then the rest is like you layer on. You said this just before we were recording, which is about that idea. It's like, but what is it that makes you you? Like, why are you doing your thing
Yes.
as opposed
Yeah.
to don't try and do someone else's thing? Do you want to
Yeah.
share more
Yeah.
about that
Yeah.
differentiation?
Yeah, yes. I guess I put our business hats on for now. Like I don't usually use these terms, but this is an evolving market, and it's great because I can see our neurokin driving it, hopefully more and more. So, I mean, there's allies that are doing a good job, but I love seeing how neurokin are driving more neuro accessible, neuro affirming businesses, events. The only thing I would say is that if it becomes homogenous, like the same, it starts to lose its impact and it gets diluted. And so this is where I was thinking, like, for our own sakes, our own brand identity, our own, why, what is it that's your unique position? What is it that's your unique flavor? Like, what makes you different in what you're bringing? What's your story? What's your journey? What's your take that's different? And how are you going to share how that difference is with the community? So they go, okay, well, I won't go to the Yellow Ladybugs conference because, I've done that, but this one is a bit more siloed in XYZ, and that makes sense. Like, so it's about trying to find out what your unique position is, because what I am starting to see is very similar presenters, which is great. Like, I do want all our presenters to get as many opportunities that as I can, but if it becomes too similar, then everything looks similar and nothing looks different, and so it confuses our community. And I like go,
Yeah.
well, what do I do?
This is like about niching. It's like, okay, well, we're not just
Yes,
everything for everyone. It's like,
yeah,
what is this thing particularly for?
yeah.
I think,
Actually, I will
sorry, you
touch
go.
on niche while I remember it, because this is sort of like a little side quest, but not really. When I started Yellow Ladybugs, people go, "Why can't you do it for this? Why can't you do it for that?
Mhm.
Why can't you do it?" And we have evolved, which has been great, and we've evolved to the lifespan of adults and included resources. But I was so headstrong on my mission and niche because I knew there was a gap. And if I had diluted it based on what everyone was telling me to do, then it wouldn't have been what it is right now. And it was hard because we had haters, like, "Why aren't you doing
Mhm.
boys and men?" Like, I totally get that that's a space that needs work, but that's not my thing. Like, there's enough room for you to do your thing. There's enough thing for you to be my thing. I was doing it at the time to meet the need of the kids that were falling through the cracks,
Yeah.
the high maskers, the internalizers. And if I'd become similar like everyone else, then we would have been just like everyone else. And we wouldn't have had the chance to have these kind of convos. Be headstrong on your mission, I guess, is the advice.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of audiobooks, and I rarely remember specifics. And
Yeah.
this time I did, and I even just managed to find the quote that is so spot on to underline what you're saying there. So I'm in the middle of listening to Priya Parker's The Art of Gathering, which it's amazing. I'm really enjoying it. And she talks about generous exclusion, which is a fascinating concept considering we're talking
Yeah.
about inclusion. And there's even a quote here: excluding thoughtfully allows you to focus on a specific underexplored relationship.
Mm,
When we craft purposeful gatherings, differences can be highlighted, which stimulate engaged conversation. If we fail to draw boundaries in service inclusion, we dilute the gathering. That's, you use that word as well. And
mm,
another one is, she says, if everyone is invited, no one is invited, in the sense of being truly held by the group. By
mm.
closing the door, you create room.
Yeah. Yes. That makes so much sense. And again, I'm going to go back to what's your non-negotiables and your
Yes.
negotiables. So
Yes.
for me, learning about at the start, it was just, we used language that we don't use now, right? It was Aspie girls when we first started. And so learning that our community has a crossover with gender diverse and
Mhm.
there's a high correlation with trans. So that was a non-negotiable expansion of our space, because we didn't want to go to cis males because that's not what we were about, but we will expand it where it's a non-negotiable in terms of inclusion, where it makes sense for us. The
Yeah.
same in terms of making sure that we have a cross representation of people from a BIPOC community or a CALD community. And so making sure that we evolve and we're inviting people into the space and we're making it as accessible as possible, but
Yeah.
not doing what others expect from us just because
Mm.
they want you to be there, because you'll just dilute what you're doing. We've had people get really angry at us for that, but it wouldn't be where we are without it. And that goes back to what we're saying around what makes your flavor unique, because you need to get to know that. Your relationship with that needs to be so strong so
Yes.
that you don't dilute it along the way. Especially ADHDs, we're like, "Whoa, look over there, look over there." And it's great for innovation and evolution, but and especially for people pleasers,
Mm.
if you're trying to please everyone, you'll end up pleasing no one. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, just something to think about in terms of your unique positioning and
Yeah.
also your why. Like when I taught event management, whenever our students would come up with a concept, it wasn't like the five W's. We used to talk about the five W's, and people used to think it was what, but it's the why. You have to start with why. Like, go back to your concept why
Why does
doing what
this?
you're doing. Why do you want to create what you want to create?
Yeah.
And then who, what, where, when. And also the other thing in terms of like going back to my event management hat was the wow factor. So what is the wow factor? I always used to think, what is the wow factor? And often back then, we used to talk about engaging the five senses. But it's interesting because I was exploring my neurodivergence back then. As a sensory seeker, that makes sense. So all my events were always around making sure I engaged all five senses, but maybe it's about how we disengage some of those senses too. Like if you're making it an accessible space.
And that makes me think then there's a question we've got from one of our listeners about getting feedback. How do you get feedback from people, I guess, after events, or even how do you gather from people what they need once they've registered, or how do you even broadly gather from your community what do they need, as opposed to what would I make if it was just for me?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. Well, I do think there's merit in what would I make if it was just for me, because that's honestly how I started it. So, like, that is a beautiful way to start it. And maybe I've had to evolve my listening because I am very monotropic, tunnel vision, hyper focused, head down, bum up. And so it's had to be intentional, but also teaming up with people that do have more of that. And now I sound like I don't care what my community think. That's not what I mean. But like Natasha, for example, my colleague, is very much in tune with the community. She's in all the groups. She's listening. She's got her ear to the ground, and she's got her finger on the heartbeat of things. So she'll come to me and say, "This is coming up in the community quite a lot," and then we'll unpack that and think about it. But so there's that natural, organic flow of things, but there's also the intentional parts. So, like I said, it's all about building a relationship and trust with your community. We don't go to our community a lot. We get asked so many times to send out surveys or research requests, and there's good reasons for that. But I don't want us to feel like we're like a community to be sold to or guinea pigs. So we really reduce the amount we go to our community. And when we do ask, they're really generous in sharing their thoughts. So we have to be really mindful that how often we go for advice to our community, because they're low on spoons as well, and it's executive functioning challenges. So if we ask questions, it might be on our Instagram stories, like, really quick, easy, accessible ways to get information there and then. Because I know I never fill out stuff. Like I'm like, who's got time and who's got capacity? But if on a story there's like 5 options, I'm always the one, like it's a dopamine hit. Yay!
Yeah,
I
easy.
can answer that.
And that's one thing, is getting easy ways of gathering feedback. And then the other challenge is getting quality, and I'm not just saying quality of responses, which is one thing, but also how close a match those respondents are for who is actually going to buy the ticket and attend your event.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I'll share one thing which is working for me when I do speeches and presentations. At the end of my slides, I've got a QR code. If it's online, I also just paste the link into the chat, and then it's a 1-minute feedback. And I just
love that.
talk about my podcast or something while they're doing that.
I
love
get
that. Amazing feedback, because I make it clear. I literally call it 1-minute feedback. And the questions are just, what is the thing you just completed? I'm looking at it now. Would you recommend it to another person from 1 to 5?
Yeah.
That's the only essential, those 2 questions. And then there's 3 optionals, which I get great information from, which is comments on what you enjoyed most, your biggest takeaway, what you learned, comments on what you didn't enjoy or what I could change in the future, and what does this leave you wanting to know more about. And honestly, that last question has been one of the biggest things in both my businesses that has guided what else will I create.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't know what people are needing or thinking at the time, and it can change. So that's really important.
I'm just thinking, if I was doing a bigger event, I reckon I would put these up everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. And I'm going to give you a bit of like some history as to how we used to do it, how we do it now. So we used to have volunteers that were specifically there. They were event students that would observe the event. So one form of evaluation is observation. So it can be someone that's got some tick boxes and saying, you specifically have things that you're looking for. Are there people in the queue? Do people look frustrated? Because not everyone's going to share. So you can have someone there that's observing.
I made up a term, I think called covert feedback, which is what the reading between the lines. Does that
It is.
exist or did I make that
It
up?
does exist. But I'm glad you're onto it. It's covert and overt feedback.
Okay, I'm not
Lots of
taking
notes
credit
on
for
it.
it anymore, but I'm glad I
No,
can tell.
take credit. I love it. It is a feed. It was something I did mention in the lecture way back when, because two of my students would come and that was their job. They were the covert feedback people. They would look and observe, and they had a checklist, and they would, and that was excellent, honestly, because when you're busy running your event, you're not thinking whether, people are grumbling in the bathrooms, or, people are saying that the food's cold. Like, some people will share that afterwards, but you get a whole nother angle of observation there.
And we can take so much for all other forms of groups and online and offline, but just that
Yeah.
idea of observing the behavior or the
Yes.
non-behavior
Yeah,
sometimes.
100%. Even in the chat, if it's an online event, and seeing like not many people were asking questions, like someone that's actively observing
Yes.
those kind of things. I'm not great at reading between the lines. I need a bit more overt stuff. So for me, it's like, that's not my strength. So finding someone that can
So
read
everyone
between
needs a
the
Natasha,
lines,
basically.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And then obviously there's the more structured stuff. So we did do full evaluation reports for a couple of conferences in a row. So where we would send out and we would get like qualitative and quantitative stuff, and on socials, and we did a deep dive into that. And I'm going to just keep it real, because from a sustainability perspective, when you're starting to feel burnt out and rejection sensitivity kicks in, sometimes it's like, the community can be insatiable, and it's like, this year I can't handle a deep dive into feedback. We'll ask this, this, and this. So I'm a bit more selective in how I'll get feedback. But sometimes my brain just needs a bit of a break and go, I trust my work enough now that people will let us know if there's any major red flags, but I'll only ask here, here, and here. So I don't know if that's the right answer. It's probably not, but
No, but it's all learning.
I'm just trying to keep it real for people, that it's feedback's really important.
The other piece I'll say, which I
Yeah.
now say as I'm putting up my QR code for the feedback form, is I promise them that I do not look on the day of me doing the thing. And I totally recommend that to everyone. The self-restraint to not look until a few days later.
That's a good point.
Because guaranteed, especially if you're autistic and you're running any kind of training or event, you are exhausted.
You're going to focus on the 2 words out of the 100 positive.
Yeah.
And it's going to just kill your buzz.
Yeah, don't even.
Don't. Yeah.
It's kind of amazing and hilarious that of my list of, like, let's say event planning checklist kind of stuff, we didn't specifically really touch on any of it in a sense. I think there's a lot of event planning info out there in the world, but is there any kind of last thoughts on the more logistics side, the organizing, the setup, anything that stands out for you, something we haven't touched on that is in that really affirming, inclusive angle that is different to what we're going to find on Google?
Yeah. Okay. Again, going back to like my corporate days, I used to firstly think of, what's the money can't buy element that I'm going to bring to this experience? Like, what is it that they can get at this event that they can't buy elsewhere?
Love that.
So it's a money can't buy experience. And then going into that corporate world as well, I used to work with a lot of partners who are partners at accounting firms who were obviously neurodivergent. And it really trained me into making sure that I had enough information to prepare to give them, so that they can do their job the best they can. And so for me, accessibility in my events and logistics is around, what information can I gather and provide and package in a way that my attendees will be able to use in a way that works for them. So I think of it as stakeholders. Who are my stakeholders, and what level of interest may they have? So attendees, well, they've got a high interest in knowing how to access the venue, or how they can recover from the conference, or how they can feel part of the conference, or how they can. So I will make sure that the information I give them is personalized to them as a stakeholder group. And so that's where we create, that you would have seen it, our guide that guests get, which is very personalized to
Very
that.
comprehensive.
It's very comprehensive. It gives information on not just And I have to think of their needs. So you've got to put yourself in their shoes. Like, is this person busy and ADHD and just wants the bottom line on the first page? So I'll make sure I've got like how to get there, um, what the transport areas are like,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. And then maybe someone is a deeper thinker and they want to really read more information and go into detail. So we'll give them way more depth if they want to access the depth about things like, accessing the sensory seeking space with photos so they can see it in advance, telling them
photos
what
are
might
huge for me.
be on the menu before so that they know what to, expect. And speaking of food, like just ask for what you want from a venue. So,
Nice.
I used to hate conferences where it was fancy food and people are still doing it. So we had a meeting with the chef and we said, why can't it be hot chips and pieces of bread with butter and plain cheddar? Like, why can't it be an all gluten-free menu? So I guess in terms of logistics, it's about what information you can get, but what changes you can make and challenging the status quo. There's no magical venue that's going to be accessible, unfortunately, yet, unless we create a Yellow Ladybugs venue space that we can all use.
So let's just
Don't
flag that
encourage
for your
me.
future.
Don't encourage me.
But I
Yeah.
love that point. So you're trying to shape as much as possible.
Yeah,
Don't just say this is how it's always done.
Yeah, don't and push back. Like, why? Why does it need to? And give them reasons. Like, they're not going to change unless. And it's unfair that the labor goes on to us that they haven't thought of this themselves. But you can say like, why do the lights need to be on? Yes, there might be people that need it for accessibility for vision, but maybe that can be one table and we can have that space for vision impaired people. Why can't we have the lights off? How low can you get them? Don't
Yeah.
just show me what you think. I'm going to see it all the way off. And I'm going to
15%. Is that the number I have in my head that you got the venue
I
to
think
do?
we got it down to 10%.
Yes.
But again, they were pushing at 50%. And we were like, no, it's not accessible and it's not low enough.
Totally.
And that evolved because we got feedback the year before.
So that's then the message for all aspects of these
Yeah,
event
yeah.
planning questions is really, I think, is that,
Yeah.
well, what do you need? What does the audience need?
Yes,
Don't just
senses.
accept what it's always been done this way.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. And think of all the things, temperature, all the senses. So it's not just lighting or food, but what else? It smells.
Yes.
Like, are we going to tell our staff not to wear heavy perfumes? Are we
Mhm.
going to put that on our social story? Like, if you can avoid perfumes,
Yeah.
it's all the senses that you need to sort of think about as well. You'll just evolve it.
There's so much more. Like, I know that we could chat forever because I actually, out of 14,000 other questions, I want to ask you. One of our fabulous members who lives in Queensland noted, they've called out that it is Autistic Christmas for us. And that it's based in Victoria and cost and logistics of getting to a physical conference.
Yeah.
Will there be smaller one-day events similar to what is held at Yellow Ladybugs where we have a chance to connect with our neurokin? And before I put you on the hook and say, can you commit to like a worldwide conference tour? Maybe. I'll just
God, yes,
let that
please.
ruminate for a moment. And I feel like in a way, part of what you and I were hoping to do in this chat is to sort of ensure that there's more affirming events spreading everywhere, whether they're run by the fabulous Yellow Ladybugs. So what's your answer for this?
The pragmatic side of me says that the Department of Education sponsored this conference and they're Victorian. And so this is born from their partnership in a way. We've tried to get New South Wales on board, Department of Ed, they just haven't bitten off that. I've tried Queensland in the past to connect, it hasn't been. Again, this is why sometimes it's serendipitous. It's like the stars align sometimes with some connections and not others. As it doesn't mean any less value on you and your work. But I definitely want to, now that my kids are 18 and 16, I've been saying to the team, like, we would love to do a bit of a road trip around Australia. But I also think, like you said, there's other conferences starting to pop up that we can't be everywhere at once. And it's great to see more places having events that are neuroaffirming because we need to get out of our bubble of people we're around that are already sort of preaching to the converted kind of thing. I really feel like this message needs to get out to not just our neurokin, not just the people who get it. Yes, it's validating for us all to hear this and experiencing it, but it's those remote like towns or those schools that are so like 10 years of like backwards of not even understanding the basics of autism, let alone high masking, internalized neuroaffirming messaging. So I don't know how we're going to tackle that as a community in terms of getting our reach there, but
So
like I
spreading
would love,
into these spaces and
yeah,
bubbles that are less
yeah.
um,
I mean, that's a niche.
in,
There's a niche now for
in a loop.
someone like getting out, going
Yeah.
to the remote parts where people are not even at that base level.
Stepping away from that education space for a moment, I remember having scrolled through the South by Southwest schedule, which is a very mainstream conference.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing at least a few of the events and the speakers and the topics that are around something about different brains, whether it calls out neurodivergence or
Yeah.
not. I think
Yeah.
one had ADHD in the title. So that to me is a little
Yeah.
signal, and this could happen in
100%.
spaces.
Actually, you're spot on. The thing that we're not doing, and I feel like would be great, is seeing more autistic or neuroaffirming people out there who are consulting or speakers, going into other conferences that aren't even thinking of this, and getting a seat at the table or a spot on the stage so that we're going cross industry, all the industries, like you just said, and getting this message out to the people who need it. Yeah, it's happening. It's
difficult.
happening. And I'm really cheering it, the community on, seeing it. In terms of like social events, the thing that, again, part of business is also knowing your capacity and limitations. And the more we were running those face-to-face events, like the events in NGV, the more our community wanted. And we, for about 6, 7, 8 years, we were doing them. And we've had to pause them right now, A, because of funding constraints, but there's just too much demand. Like, honestly, it was really overwhelming. And we've had to think of another alternative. What we're launching is an online way for people to connect with the community. So at the moment, we've had to be innovative in that we've called it Local Connect. So families can go on, put their postcode in, register, do the training, and then they can find other families in their area to connect with, because we knew we weren't going to be able to connect people in WA remote or Northern like we really wanted a way for families to connect, but we're now going to do it for adults. So adults can join, and based on interest, like say your interest is, what's your interest, Adina?
Nail polish, snowboarding.
Nail polish, yeah. So it might be that. It might be, for me, it's like spling, or it might be neuroqueer theory, whatever it is. You can search our community by that. And I guess my point is that we've been able to try and fill that gap of our community needing that connection, but we weren't able to sustain it in the way we were doing it. And we've had to pivot.
I love that.
It's been hard because we know that our community need more face-to-face connections, but we've had to keep it real with ourselves and work out what's sustainable. And
It's a beautiful example of a pivot that means you're looking after your capacity and still the needs, but you're going from organizer to connector.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do.
Feels like a natural evolution. And I will put a link to all of this stuff in the show notes. I'll just say, Katie, if you ever want to come back.
Thank you. That's really lovely. It's an honor.
Another specific chat, or like audience folks listening, give us feedback if you want to hear more.
Yeah, open to it, definitely. This has been really sweet and really, really helpful. I don't usually take that hat off of just talking around, autistic girls, women, and gender diverse needs. And it's been really cool to sort of unpack my own journey. And it's felt so safe to do it with you, Adina. So thank you so much.
I love it. I love all the roles that we've had with each other. And this is so useful. I don't even know whether I've run groups and things many times, and I have a community and a membership, but now you're going to have me like thinking about a conference or something. Never mind. I'll just let that.
Well, yeah, there's space for us all.
I love it. But thank you so much for your time and generosity in sharing. And yeah,
my
anyone
pleasure.
can get in touch with Katie, I'll pop all the links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of Differently Aligned. If you found this conversation helpful, just imagine what else is waiting for you inside the Neurodivergent Business Collective. It is a world of resources, support, coaching, webinars, guest speaker chats, just so much support for my neurodivergent business community. You'll find the link in the show notes to go and check out the Neurodivergent Business Collective. And I know that myself and my guests are really open to hearing from you. What has been really helpful, what's resonated for you, go and give them a follow, check out their work, and we'd love to keep the conversation going with you. Have a beautiful day.